I always thought moving to Pinecrest Heights would be the ideal next step for my career. The neighborhood was impeccable, perfectly trimmed lawns, matching mailboxes, and not a basketball hoop in sight. What I didn't realize was that this perfection came with a price: a woman named Susan Harper, the president of our homeowners association. From the moment I arrived, Susan made it clear she saw herself as the unofficial mayor, judge, and sheriff of our little community. "Welcome to Pinecrest Heights," she said with a forced smile on my first day, clutching a clipboard. "I'm Susan Harper, HOA president. You'll need to review the community guidelines immediately. There are 137 rules, and I enforce every single one." She handed me a binder heavier than my laptop. Little did I know that binder would become the battleground for our neighborhood war. The trouble started innocently enough. I work in IT, often from home, and last summer, I decided to upgrade my home office with a small satellite dish for better internet. Per the HOA bylaws, I submitted the proper paperwork, including detailed diagrams showing the dish's placement on my roof barely visible from the street and painted to blend with the tiles. 3 days after installation, a sharp, rhythmic knock came at my door. It was Susan, her auburn bob perfectly still despite the breeze, sunglasses perched on her head like a tiara. "That satellite dish is a violation," she declared, pointing dramatically at my roof as if spotting a criminal. "It's an eyesore and must be removed within 24 hours. I kept my cool, though my patience was thinning. "Actually, Susan, I submitted the paperwork last month and got approval. I have the documentation right here." I reached for the folder I'd started keeping by the door just for these encounters. Her eyes narrowed as she snatched the papers. "This approval is conditional," she said with a dismissive wave. "The board has reconsidered. That dish disrupts the aesthetic harmony of our community." I couldn't help but notice her own house, 3 doors down, had a similar dish tucked behind her chimney. "The Federal Communications Commission protects my right to install this equipment," I explained calmly. "The HOA already approved it. It's staying." I could see her cheeks flush as I took back my paperwork and closed the door. That exchange, I'd later learn, was just the opening shot in Susan's personal crusade against me. Over the next few weeks, violation notices piled up. My grass was a 1/4 inch too tall. My garbage can lingered at the curb 15 minutes after pickup. My car was parked in my driveway for over 8 hours straight. Each notice carried a potential fine, signed with Susan's looping signature and a smiley face that felt more menacing than friendly. I contested every one with photos and timestamps, copying the entire HOA board. Soon, other board members voiced frustration with her petty complaints. "We have bigger issues than the placement of Mr. Carter's garbage cans," one wrote in an email accidentally sent to all residents. Susan's reply was sharp, accusing certain board members of shirking their duties. Things escalated when I installed security cameras around my property, with package thefts reported in nearby neighborhoods. And as someone who receives pricey tech equipment for work, I wanted to be proactive. Again, I submitted paperwork, included camera placement diagrams, and got approval from the HOA Architectural Committee without Susan's involvement. 2 days after installation, I came home from grocery shopping to find Susan in my front yard, tape measure in hand, measuring the exact distance from my camera to the property line. "These cameras are surveilling public areas and neighboring properties," she said accusingly as I approached, arms full of groceries. "That's an invasion of privacy and against HOA regulations." I set my bags on the porch and crossed my arms. "The cameras are aimed only at my property, Susan. They don't capture public spaces or other yards. The Architectural Committee approved them last week." I showed her the approval on my phone. Her lips tightened. "I'm overriding their decision. Those cameras come down by tomorrow morning, or you'll be fined $500 per day." She spun around, nearly tripping over a sprinkler head in her rush to leave. That evening, I reviewed my camera footage and spotted something odd. Around 3 p.m., while I was at the store, a figure approached my satellite dish with a spray can. Zooming in, I was stunned to see Susan herself, attempting to paint my dish black, likely to claim it was an unapproved color. She couldn't reach it without a ladder. I sent the footage to the HOA board with a polite but firm email, explaining I was being harassed and requesting their intervention. Their response was lackluster. They suggested we work it out as neighbors and reminded me we're all part of the same community. It was clear they weren't ready to confront Susan publicly, despite their private frustrations. The next weekend, I visited my parents 2 hours away. Returning home Sunday evening, I noticed a small black object under the eaves of my house. It was a camera one I hadn't installed aimed at my backyard. My first instinct was to rip it down, but my professional side took over. I documented its position with photos, then found two more unauthorized cameras, one at my front door, another at my home office window. These weren't security cameras, they were surveillance devices, and I had a strong suspicion who was behind them. Instead of confronting Susan, I called the non-emergency police line. 2 officers arrived within an hour, documented the cameras, and confirmed they were transmitting to an unknown receiver. "This is serious," one officer said. "Installing surveillance equipment on someone's property without consent is illegal, potentially criminal trespassing, invasion of privacy, or even stalking, depending on intent. Any idea who might have done this?" "I have footage from my own legal cameras that might help," I said, inviting them inside. Sure enough, my recordings showed Susan sneaking onto my property early that morning, toolbox in hand, installing her spy cameras while I was away. The officers shook their heads. "We'll need a copy of this," the senior officer said grimly. "This is a serious criminal matter." As they gathered evidence, a car pulled into my driveway. It was Susan, clipboard in hand, ready to deliver another violation notice. Her face when she saw the police cruiser was unforgettably a mix of shock, indignation, and dawning fear. "Ma'am, are you Susan Harper?" an officer asked. "Yes, I'm the HOA president," she replied, her tight smile faltering. "Is there a problem, officer?" "We're investigating unauthorized surveillance equipment on this property," he said. "Would you know anything about that?" Her face cycled from confidence to panic. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, backing toward her car. "I'm just here about improper landscape maintenance." "Ma'am, we have video evidence of you installing these devices today," the officer said. "Stay right here while we sort this out." What followed was the most uncomfortable yet satisfying hour of my neighborhood saga. The officers confirmed the cameras were transmitting to a receiver in Susan's home office. They explained the severity of her actions as she cycled through excuses. First, it was her right as HOA president to monitor violations. Then, she claimed the cameras were needed because she suspected I was running an illegal business. Finally, she admitted she installed them because she was fed up with people disrespecting her authority. The junior officer escorted Susan to the police cruiser while the senior officer explained next steps. "She's being arrested for criminal trespassing, invasion of privacy, and illegal surveillance," he said. "You'll need to appear in court, but with this video evidence, it's clear-cut." As Susan was led away, neighbors emerged, watching in stunned silence. Her face was tomato red as she realized the neighborhood was witnessing her downfall. "This is a mistake," she shouted. "I was just doing my job." No one defended her. Several neighbors filmed the scene, likely sharing it in the group chat I'd been mysteriously excluded from. The next morning, the HOA vice president emailed me. An emergency board meeting had unanimously voted to remove Susan as president and suspend her from the board pending her legal proceedings. The email included a formal apology for her inexcusable behavior and a request to meet to make things right. Later that day, my doorbell rang. It was Susan's husband, looking weary and embarrassed. "I've come to apologize," he said quietly. "Susan's been released on bail, with conditions including staying 100 yards from your property." He handed me an envelope. "This is to cover any damages or legal fees." Susan doesn't know I'm doing this. Inside was a $5,000 check, exactly the amount she'd threatened to fine me over months. As he turned to leave, he paused. "She's in court next week. Her lawyer says she faces hefty fines and possible probation. 20 years in this neighborhood, and now will probably have to move. Her real estate business is don't hire an agent arrested for spying on neighbors." He walked away, shoulders slumped, leaving me with the check and a sense that justice, though slow, can be remarkably thorough.